My daughter-in-law handed me the pen, grinning like a shark. She thought I was signing over my $3 million estate to her. She didn't know I had just legally turned her future inheritance into a donkey sanctuary. Hit that subscribe button right now if you want to see a greedy gold digger get destroyed. My name is Beatrice. I'm 72, and for the last 3 decades, I've lived in a beautiful colonial house in upstate New York. My late husband, Harold, built this place with his bare hands and his brilliant mind for business. It wasn't just a house, it was my sanctuary. But to my daughter-in-law, Serena, it was nothing more than a giant dollar sign waiting to be cashed. The nightmare truly began on Thanksgiving Day. I had been up since 4 a.m., wrestling with a 20-pound turkey and peeling enough potatoes to feed an army. My arthritis was flaring up, making my knuckles feel like they were filled with broken glass. But I pushed through. I always did. I wanted everything to be perfect for my son, Gavin. Around noon, the front door swung open. There was no hello, Mom, or happy Thanksgiving, just the click-clack of Serena's 4-inch heels on my hardwood floors and the sound of her voice screeching into her phone. Literally, I know, right? The drive was atrocious. Total buzzkill, Serena complained to whoever was on the other end, breezing past me without even a glance. She tossed her designer coat on my antique entryway table, knocking over a framed photo of Harold. She didn't even pause to pick it up. Gavin followed her in, looking more like her luggage carrier than her husband. He was carrying 3 bags of gifts, none for me, of course, but for themselves. "Hey, Mom," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. He looked tired, defeated. The bright, ambitious boy I raised had been replaced by this hollow shell of a man who jumped every time Serena snapped her fingers. "Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes, I said, wiping my hands on my apron. "Gavin, could you help me get the good china down?" Before Gavin could answer, Serena hung up her call and spun around, her face twisted in a sneer. "Ugh, Beatrice, seriously? The good china? It's just us. Nobody cares about your dusty old plates. We're not living in the 1950s. Just use paper plates. It's less cleanup for you anyway. You look like you're about to collapse." It wasn't concern in her voice. It was condescension. She looked me up and down, eyeing my flour-dusted apron and sensible shoes with open disgust. Serena was all spray tan, heavy contour, and fast fashion. She looked like she belonged on a reality TV show about people with more money than sense. "I prefer the china on Thanksgiving," I said firmly. "It's tradition." Serena rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. "Whatever. It's your funeral, literally." She laughed at her own joke, grabbing a bottle of wine she'd brought, not to share, but for herself, and marched into the living room to turn on the TV. Dinner was a disaster. I had spent days prepping, but Serena spent the entire meal critiquing everything. The turkey was too dry, the stuffing had too much sage, and the cranberry sauce was sugar poison. She sat there, picking at her food with her perfectly manicured talons, texting under the table the entire time. "So," Serena said, suddenly dropping her phone onto the table with a heavy thud. The sudden noise made me jump. "We need to have a serious talk, Beatrice." I put down my fork. "About what?" "About this place." She gestured vaguely around the dining room, her eyes gleaming with greed. "It's too much for you. We've been talking, and we think it's time you faced reality. You're getting old. You're forgetting things. The upkeep on this house is draining Gavin's inheritance. I mean, the family finances." She had slipped, but she didn't care. "I am perfectly capable of managing my own home. I have a gardener. I have a housekeeper who comes twice a week. I'm fine." "Are you?" Serena leaned forward, her voice dropping to a fake, sickly sweet whisper. "Because last week, you forgot to call us back, and the neighbors say your grass was a half-inch too long. It's embarrassing, Beatrice. It's giving senile." Gavin stared at his plate, pushing peas around with his fork. Mom, maybe she's right. Maybe it's time to downsize. We found this great facility, Shady Pines. It's assisted living. You'd have your own room, bingo nights. A room? I looked at my son, heartbroken. You want to put me in a home? In a single room? It's for your own good, Serena snapped, dropping the act. Look, let's cut the crap. We're moving in. We're going to take over the master suite. You can take the basement apartment until a spot opens up at the nursing home. It's better this way. We can modernize this place, flip it, or maybe just keep it as a summer house. But you're done here. She reached into her oversized purse and pulled out a thick stack of documents. We had a lawyer draw these up. It's a power of attorney and a deed transfer. You sign these, we take over the burden, and you go relax and play cards with the other old folks. Simple. I looked at the papers, then at my son. You agreed to this? It makes sense, Mom, he whispered, still not looking at me. You have until tomorrow morning, Serena declared, pouring herself another glass of wine. Don't be difficult, Beatrice. Don't make us do this the hard way, because trust me, I can make your life a living hell if you don't sign. She smiled, a cold, predatory smile. She thought she had all the cards. She thought I was just a weak old woman who would roll over and die to make them happy. But as I looked at my son's cowardly face and his wife's triumphant smirk, something inside me snapped. The sadness evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard rage. They wanted a fight? Oh, I would give them a fight. They had no idea who they were dealing with.
I didn't sleep a wink that night. The legal documents sat on my antique mahogany nightstand like a coiled rattlesnake waiting to strike. Every time I looked at them, I felt a fresh wave of nausea. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the sheer audacity. They thought I was a senile old biddy who would sign away her life's work for a room at a nursing home that smelled like boiled cabbage and despair. I lay there in the dark, listening to the old house settle, the floorboards creaking as if the house itself was groaning in protest. When I finally went downstairs the next morning, the invasion had already begun. The smell of my freshly ground coffee was absent, replaced by the acrid, burnt scent of something herbal and pretentious. Serena was in my kitchen, wearing a silk robe that cost more than my first car, and she was systematically clearing out my pantry. My homemade jams, the ones I made from the raspberries in the backyard every summer, were sitting in the trash can. "Good morning, Sleeping Beauty," Serena chirped without looking at me. She dropped a jar of my prize-winning pickles into the bin with a sickening thud. "I'm doing a detox of this kitchen. All these preservatives and sugar, it's literally toxic. We're going strictly organic and keto starting today. If we're going to flip this house, we need the energy to match the vibe." "Flip the house?" I asked, my voice steady despite the rage boiling in my gut. "Last night you said you were moving in to take care of me." Serena spun around, holding a bag of chia seeds like a weapon. "Oh, Beatrice, keep up. We are moving in, but obviously we can't live in this museum. It's giving haunted mansion. We're going to gut the main floor, open up the concept, maybe knock down that wall between the dining room and the study. Modern farmhouse chic is totally in right now. Then, once the market heats up in the spring, cha-ching! We sell, put you in the deluxe suite at Shady Pines, and Gavin and I move to LA. Gavin walked in then, looking disheveled and avoiding my gaze. He poured himself a cup of the sludge Serena had brewed. "Morning, Mom." "Your wife is throwing away my food, Gavin, and she's talking about tearing down your father's study, the study he built with his own hands." Gavin rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous tic he'd had since he was a boy. "Mom, look, Serena knows a lot about real estate. She watches all those HGTV shows. The house it's a lot of work. Maybe opening it up isn't a bad idea." "It's a fantastic idea," she corrected him, snapping her fingers. "And speaking of work, Beatrice, did you sign the papers? The notary is coming at noon. I want everything filed before the weekend so we can start the renovations on Monday. I've already got a dumpster coming for all this junk furniture. Junk furniture. She was talking about 19th century antiques and heirlooms that had been in my family for generations. I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the dollar signs in her eyes, the utter lack of empathy, and I looked at my son, who would become a spineless accessory to her greed. If I fought them openly right now, they would claim I was incompetent. They would drag me through court, claim dementia, and probably win. I needed to be smarter. I needed to play the game. I let my shoulders slump. I made my hands tremble slightly as I reached for my mug. I forced a confused, defeated look onto my face. I suppose you're right, I stammered, making my voice sound thin and frail. I am getting tired. The stairs are hard on my knees, and I do forget things sometimes. Serena's eyes lit up like a predator sensing a wounded animal. She exchanged a look with Gavin, a look of pure triumph. See, babe? I told you she knew it was time. She just needed a little push. She walked over and patted my cheek, her fake nails digging slightly into my skin. You're doing the right thing, Beatrice. Don't worry about the details. We'll handle everything. I just need to say goodbye to the house, I whispered. Can I have today? I'll sign everything tomorrow morning. I just want one last day to walk through the memories. Serena sighed, checking her gold watch. Fine, but the notary is coming at noon tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. Don't be weird about it. Just walk around, cry if you have to, and then let's get this done. I have a contractor coming to look at the load-bearing walls this afternoon, so try to stay out of the way. Thank you, dear, I said meekly. As soon as they went into the living room to argue about paint swatches, Serena wanted everything greige, of course. I slipped into the hallway. I didn't go to the garden to cry. I went straight to the coat closet, pulled out my old burner phone that I kept for emergencies, and locked myself in the downstairs powder room. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I dialed a number I knew by heart. It's Arthur, I said, when the gruff voice answered. It's Beatrice. No small talk. We have a code red. The vultures are in the nest. I need you to draft a new will, and I need you to set up the livestock clause we joked about 10 years ago. Yes, I'm serious. And Arthur, find out everything you can about Serena's credit history. I have a feeling my daughter-in-law isn't as rich as she pretends to be. I hung up and flushed the toilet to mask the sound. When I walked out, I saw Serena measuring the windows, already mentally spending my money. She thought she had won. She thought I was a helpless old woman. She was about to find out that this old woman could bite. The contractor arrived at 1 p.m., driving a truck that looked like it had been lifted straight out of a monster truck rally. His name was Brock, and he looked less like a builder and more like an Instagram fitness influencer who had lost his way. He wore tight jeans and a t-shirt that was struggling to contain his biceps. Yo, sick property, Brock said, fist-bumping Gavin, who looked terrified of the man's sheer circumference. We can definitely modernize this bad boy. That porch, it's gotta go. Wraparound porches are dead. We need clean lines, glass, industrial vibes. I watched from the kitchen window as Serena pointed at my beloved rose garden, the one Harold had planted for our 20th anniversary. We need to pave that over, she instructed, waving her hand dismissively. I want an infinity pool and a fire pit area, something totally Instagrammable. The flowers are just messy, too much maintenance. Pave it over? I whispered to myself, my grip tightening on the edge of the sink until my knuckles turned white. Over my dead body. While they were outside plotting the demolition of my life, I decided to do a little demolition of my own. I knew they had dumped their bags in the master suite, my room, which they had commandeered without asking. I crept up the stairs, moving silently on the carpet. For an old lady with bad knees, I could still move like a ghost when I needed to. Their luggage was exploded all over my room. Clothes were everywhere. It looked like a bomb had gone off in a fashion boutique. I stepped over a pile of sequined tops and went straight for Serena's massive designer tote bags sitting on the bed. I knew her type.
They lived their lives on their phones, but they kept their secrets in their bags. I dug past the makeup kits, the protein bars, and a truly alarming amount of hairspray until my fingers brushed against a thick envelope tucked into the zippered lining. I pulled it out. It was marked "Urgent, Final Notice" in angry red letters. I opened it. It wasn't a bill. It was a foreclosure notice on a condo I didn't even know they had. And underneath that, a letter from a credit card company demanding payment of $85,000. $85,000, I breathed. I kept digging. I found a second envelope. This one was addressed to Gavin, but it had clearly been opened and then hidden by Serena. It was from a business loan provider rejecting an application for refinancing due to poor credit history and lack of collateral. The picture was becoming crystal clear. They weren't just greedy. They were desperate. They were drowning. Serena had likely blown through whatever money Gavin made, and now they needed my house not just to get rich, but to stay out of bankruptcy court. They were going to sell my home, shove me in a nursing home, and use the cash to plug the holes in their sinking ship. I took photos of everything with my burner phone, shoved the papers back exactly how I found them, and slipped out of the room. Back in the kitchen, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Arthur. Daughter-in-law has 3 maxed out cards and a lien on her car. She's toxic debt, Bia. Also, the documents are ready. My paralegal Sarah is parked down the street. Meet her at the back gate in 10. I checked the window. Serena was busy flirting with Brock near the garage, while Gavin looked at his shoes. I grabbed a pruning basket and my sun hat. "Just going to clip some hydrangeas for the table," I called out cheerily through the screen door. "Whatever," Serena yelled back without turning around. "Make sure you don't track mud in." I shuffled to the back of the property, hidden by the tall hedges. Sarah was waiting by the old service gate, looking like a spy in a trench coat. She handed me a clipboard. "The new will and the deed transfer into the trust," she whispered. "Sign here, here, and here. This locks the property into the sanctuary trust effective immediately. Once you sign this, you can't sell it, and neither can anyone else. It becomes the legal property of the nonprofit entity." I signed my name with a flourish. "And the clause about the animals?" "Ironclad," she grinned. "The estate is designated solely for the care and housing of rescue donkeys. Any attempt to reside on the property by unauthorized personnel, aka your family, voids their claim to any stipend. They get nothing." "Perfect," I said, handing the clipboard back. "File it immediately." "It'll be recorded within the hour," Sarah promised, slipping back into her car. I walked back to the house with a basket of hydrangeas and a heart full of wicked joy. When I walked into the kitchen, Serena was there, drinking a green smoothie. "So," she said, eyeing the flowers, "Brock says he can start demo on Monday. That means you need to be out by Sunday night. We'll drop you at Shady Pines on the way to brunch." "Oh, Sunday works fine," I said, arranging the flowers in a vase. "I've always loved Sundays." "Good. And Beatrice," she stepped closer, her voice dropping to that menacing whisper again, "don't try anything weird tomorrow with the notary. Gavin is stressed enough. If you embarrass us, I will make sure the nursing home staff forgets to give you your meds. Do we understand each other?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and smiled. It was the sweetest, most grandmotherly smile I had ever mustered. "Oh, Serena, dear, I wouldn't dream of embarrassing you. Tomorrow is going to be a day none of us will ever forget." She smirked, thinking she had won. She had no idea she had just threatened the owner of the largest future donkey sanctuary in New York. The trap was set. Now, I just had to wait for them to walk right into it.
The morning of the grand handover, as Serena had dubbed it, felt less like a business transaction and more like a coronation for a queen who had bought her crown at a discount store. I woke up to the smell of burnt toast and the sound of Serena shouting at Gavin to move his car so the notary could have the premium spot in the driveway. I took my time getting dressed. I chose a floral dress that Serena had once told me looked like upholstery in a funeral home. I pinned a pearl brooch to my collar, the one Harold gave me for our 30th anniversary. If I was going to star in their little theater production, I was going to dress the part. When I walked into the dining room, the table had been cleared of my runner and centerpiece. In its place sat a sleek laptop, a bottle of champagne, and a stack of documents thick enough to choke a horse. "Finally," Serena snapped, looking up from her phone. She was wearing a white pantsuit that I assumed was supposed to scream, "Boss babe," but mostly just screamed, "I'm trying too hard." "The notary, Mr. Clanton, will be here in 5 minutes. Sit here, don't speak unless spoken to, and for the love of God, try not to shake when you sign. I don't want the signature to look contested." Gavin was pacing by the window, chewing on his thumbnail. "Are you sure about this, Serena? Maybe we should give her a few more days to pack." "Zip it, Gavin," she hissed. "We are on a schedule. Brock the builder is coming tomorrow to demo the kitchen. We need the deed recorded by 2 p.m. today. Do you want to lose the deposit? Do you want to explain to the bank why we can't pay the bridge loan?" She stopped, realizing she'd said too much in front of me. She shot me a glance, but I was busy smoothing out my skirt, pretending to be fascinated by a loose thread. "What loan, dear?" I asked, innocently. "Nothing, Beatrice, just business talk, way over your head." She waved her hand dismissively. The doorbell rang. Mr. Clanton was a sweaty little man with a comb-over that was fighting a losing battle against gravity. He waddled in, clutching his briefcase, and smiled at Serena with teeth that looked a little too white to be real. "Mrs. Miller, a pleasure," he said to Serena, ignoring me completely. "I have the transfer documents right here. Standard quitclaim deed, irrevocable power of attorney, and the asset transfer agreement." "Great," Serena said, popping the cork on the champagne before the ink was even wet. "Let's get this over with. Mom, pen." She shoved a pen into my hand. I looked at the paper. It was a quitclaim deed transferring all my rights, title, and interest in the property to Gavin and Serena Miller. "Where do I sign?" I asked, my voice trembling just the right amount. "Right there, Beatrice, next to the grantor tag," Serena said, tapping the paper with her long acrylic nail. "Just sign it, and then you can go take a nap while we measure for the new hot tub." I hovered the pen over the paper. The room went silent. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. I could hear Gavin's heavy breathing. I could practically hear Serena mentally spending the equity. I just want to make sure the garden stays. Harold loved those roses." Serena rolled her eyes so hard, I thought she'd strain a muscle. "Yes, yes, the roses. Whatever. We'll keep the roses. Just sign the damn paper, Beatrice." "Okay," I whispered, "if you promise." I lowered the pen and signed my name. Beatrice H. Thorne. "Yes!" Serena shrieked, snatching the paper away before the ink was dry. She practically threw it at the notary. "Notarize that. Stamp it. It's done." Mr. Clanton stamped the documents with a heavy thud-thud. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Miller. You are now the owners of this substantial estate." Serena grabbed Gavin and kissed him, leaving a smear of red lipstick on his cheek. "We did it, babe. We're rich. I mean, homeowners." She spun around to me, her face glowing with victory. "Okay, Beatrice, time to chop chop. Go pack a bag. We're dropping you off at Shady Pines in 2 hours. I've already called an Uber for your boxes." "An Uber?" I asked, blinking. "But
I have so much furniture." "The furniture stays," Serena said coldly, her smile vanishing. "We're selling it at an estate auction next week. You can take your clothes and your toiletries. That's it." Gavin looked at the floor. "Serena, that's harsh. Maybe she can take the rocking chair." "No," Serena barked. "Clean break, new aesthetic. Now get upstairs, Beatrice. I have real estate agents coming for a walkthrough at noon." I stood up slowly, clutching my cane. "You know, I really hope you two enjoy the house. It has a lot of character." Yeah, save the speeches," Serena waved me off, pouring herself a glass of champagne. "Go pack." I walked toward the stairs, but instead of going up, I turned toward the front window. A low rumbling was vibrating through the floorboards. It was getting louder. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of a heavy vehicle backing up. "What is that noise?" Serena demanded, walking to the window with her glass in hand. "I think it's a delivery," I said, a small smile playing on my lips. "I didn't order anything," Serena said, frowning. She peered through the sheer curtains. "What the hell? Gavin, why is there a massive 18-wheeler pulling onto the lawn? It's ruining the grass." "It says Equine Supply on the side." "Equine?" Serena turned to me, confused. "Beatrice, did you order a horse?" "Not exactly," I said, checking my watch. Right on time. Suddenly, the front door burst open without a knock. It wasn't a delivery driver. It was Arthur, my lawyer, followed by 3 burly men in coveralls holding rolls of barbed wire and fence posts. "Good afternoon, everyone," Arthur boomed, his voice filling the entryway. Not smiling. "Sorry to interrupt the party, but we're on a tight schedule. Boys, start staking out the perimeter for the paddocks. I want the electric fence operational by sundown." Serena dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the hardwood floor, shards flying everywhere. "Who the hell are you?" she screamed, stepping over the broken glass. "Get out of my house! I just bought this place. I'll call the police." Arthur looked at Serena, then at the notary, finally at me. He pulled a thick document from his briefcase, the one Sarah had filed yesterday. "Bought this place?" Arthur chuckled darkly. "Mrs. Miller, you can't buy something that doesn't belong to the seller. Beatrice didn't own this house when she signed your little paper 5 minutes ago. The Sanctuary Trust has owned it since yesterday afternoon, and I'm the trustee." Serena's face went pale, the color draining away like water down a drain. "Trust? What trust?" "The Happy Hooves Donkey Sanctuary and Rescue," I piped up, finally dropping the frail old lady act. I stood up straight, rolled my shoulders back, and looked my daughter-in-law dead in the eye. "And I'm afraid, Serena, that we have a strict no humans policy in the main residence. The donkeys, however, are moving into the living room." The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the sound of Mr. Clanton, the notary, shuffling papers with sweaty, trembling hands. He snatched the document Arthur was holding, the deed to the Happy Hooves Donkey Sanctuary Trust, and compared it to the quitclaim deed Serena was clutching like a lifeline. "Well," Serena barked, her voice cracking, "tell this old bat she's lying. Tell her the house is mine. I have her signature right here." Mr. Clanton looked up, his face an alarming shade of gray. He loosened his tie, looking like a man who realized he had just walked into a minefield. "Mrs. Miller," he stammered, addressing Serena, I'm afraid your mother-in-law is correct. The date on this trust filing is yesterday at 4 p.m. The property title was transferred to the nonprofit entity then. When Beatrice signed your quitclaim deed 5 minutes ago, she didn't legally own the house anymore. She was signing away rights she didn't have." "What does that mean?" Gavin asked, his voice barely a whisper. "It means," Arthur interjected with a shark-like grin, That the paper your wife is holding is worth less than the napkin I used at lunch. It's void, null, useless. Serena let out a sound that was half scream, half growl. She ripped the deed in half and threw the pieces at me. "You senile old witch! You tricked me! This is fraud! I'll sue you for everything you have." "Fraud?" I stepped forward, smoothing out my floral dress. I didn't need the cane anymore, so I let it drop to the floor with a loud clatter. Fraud is maxing out credit cards in your husband's name. Fraud is taking out a second mortgage on a condo without telling your spouse. Protecting my assets from a pair of vultures? That's just good estate planning, sweetie. Gavin's head snapped up. "What condo? What credit cards?" "Oh, Gavin," I sighed, looking at my son with a mixture of pity and disappointment. "She hasn't told you? The foreclosure notice I found in her bag? The $85,000 in debt? She didn't want this house to live in, son. She needed the equity to pay off her mistakes before the repo men came for her Range Rover." The color drained from Gavin's face as he turned to his wife. "Serena, is that true?" "Shut up, Gavin," Serena shrieked, her eyes wild. "She's lying. She's trying to divide us. We are a team." She spun back to Arthur. "I don't care about your stupid trust. We are not leaving. I have squatter's rights. I have residency." Arthur checked his watch. "Actually, you've been here less than 24 hours. You're guests, and as the trustee of the Happy Hooves Sanctuary, I am formally revoking your invitation. You are trespassing on a charitable facility." As if on cue, the front door opened again, but this time, it wasn't a person. A large, hairy, long-eared head poked through the doorway, followed by a very distinctive, loud bray that echoed off the high ceilings of the foyer. "Hee-haw!" Serena jumped 3 feet in the air, backing into the antique sideboard. "What is that? Oh my God! Is that a donkey in the house?" "Meet Barnaby," I said, beaming, as a handler led the rescue donkey into the hallway on a lead rope. "He's the first resident. He has a bit of a limp, poor thing, so the vet recommended he stay indoors on the soft rugs for a few days. I thought the dining room would make a lovely stall." "Get that filthy animal out of here!" Serena screamed, grabbing a heavy crystal vase. "It's going to ruin the floors." "The floors belong to the donkey now, ma'am," one of the workmen said, walking past her with a bale of hay on his shoulder. He dropped the hay right in the middle of the dining room, kicking up a cloud of dust that settled on Serena's white pantsuit. "This is insane!" Gavin yelled, finally finding his voice. "Mom, you can't live with donkeys. The smell, the hygiene, it's elder abuse." "Actually," I said coolly, "the trust stipulates that I am the live-in caretaker. I get a salary, full benefits, and the loft apartment above the garage, which has been recently renovated. The main house, yeah, it's strictly for administration and the animals. And since you two aren't employees, and you certainly aren't donkeys, though you share the stubbornness, you need to leave. Now." Serena looked around the room. Her dream of a modern farmhouse flip was crumbling. The workmen were already rolling up her greige rugs and tossing them onto the porch. Barnaby, the donkey, was currently chewing on the edge of the expensive laptop she had set up on the table. "My MacBook!" Serena lunged for the computer, but Barnaby pulled back, ripping the screen off its hinges. "Oh dear," I tutted. "You really shouldn't leave expensive electronics in the feeding area. That's a safety hazard for the residents." Serena stood there holding the severed screen of her laptop, her chest heaving. She looked at Gavin, who was scrolling frantically through his phone, probably checking his credit score. And then she looked at me, her face contorted into a mask of pure, unfiltered hatred. "You think you've won," she hissed with a voice low and venomous. "You think this is funny? You're going to regret this, Beatrice. I have connections. I have friends in zoning. I'll have this place condemned. I'll have you declared mentally incompetent. I will burn this place to the ground before I let you turn it into a petting zoo." "I wouldn't do that," Arthur said, stepping between us. "Arson is a felony, and considering I've already forwarded the forensic accounting of your finances to the IRS and the fraud department at American Express this morning, I'd suggest you save your energy for your own legal defense." Serena froze.
The threat of the IRS was the bucket of ice water she needed. She dropped the broken laptop screen. "Gavin," she said, her voice trembling, "get the bags. We're leaving." "But where are we going?" Gavin asked, looking lost. "If the condo is in foreclosure, just get the bags," she screamed, storming toward the door. She paused at the threshold, looking back at me one last time. "This isn't over, Beatrice. Watch your back." "Watch your step," I replied cheerfully. She turned and marched out the door straight into a fresh pile of manure Barnaby had left on the welcome mat. Her 4-inch heel slipped, and she went down hard, landing right in the mess. I couldn't help it. I laughed. It was a deep, belly-shaking laugh that felt like 30 years of politeness finally leaving my body. But as I watched them scramble into their car and peel out of the driveway, Arthur leaned in close to me. "You know she's not going to stop, right? She's cornered. People like Serena are most dangerous when they have nothing left to lose." "I know," I said, my smile fading as I watched the dust settle on the driveway. "That's why we are not done yet. Phase 1 was saving the house. Phase 2 is making sure she never hurts my son or anyone else ever again." I turned back to the donkey, who was happily munching on Serena's abandoned bouquet of flowers. "Come on, Barnaby, let's get you settled. The war has just begun." The first night alone in the house with 3 donkeys was surprisingly peaceful. While Barnaby slept on a heavy tarp we'd laid down in the dining room, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea, going over the forensic accounting report Arthur had left me. It was worse than I thought. Serena wasn't just in debt, she was running a Ponzi scheme with her friends' money, promising returns on boutique investments that didn't exist. She was a criminal, plain and simple. But criminals are desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. The retaliation started at 8 a.m. sharp on Monday. I was in the front yard helping the handler, a nice young woman named Kelly, set up the new fencing when a black sedan pulled up. It wasn't the police. It was a sleek government car. A woman in a stiff gray suit stepped out, holding a clipboard like a shield. "Mrs. Beatrice Thorne?" she asked, adjusting her glasses. "I'm Agent Miller from Adult Protective Services. We received an urgent report regarding your welfare." "Let me guess," I said, leaning on a fence post. "An anonymous tipster said I was senile, living in squalor, and being eaten alive by farm animals?" The agent blinked, surprised. "The report stated you were suffering from acute dementia and were being exploited by a predatory legal team. It also mentioned unsafe sanitary conditions due to unregulated livestock." "Come inside, Agent Miller," I said with a smile. "I just baked muffins, and you can meet the predatory legal team yourself. My lawyer is in the kitchen, eating my blueberry scones." Serena had gone full Karen mode. She was trying to get me institutionalized so she could annul the trust and take back the house as my legal guardian. It was a bold play, but she forgot one thing. I kept receipts. Literally. The inspection took an hour. The agent saw my pristine kitchen, the clearly designated animal zones, the professionally installed ventilation, and the notarized medical report from my doctor, dated yesterday, certifying I was of sound mind and body. By the time she left, she was scratching Barnaby behind the ears and taking a muffin for the road. "Your daughter-in-law seems very concerned," Agent Miller said carefully as she got back in her car. "But I'll be closing this case as unfounded. However, Mrs. Thorne, she did mention something about a town council meeting tonight, something about a zoning violation." "Oh, did she?" "Yes. She's petitioned for an emergency hearing to revoke your sanctuary permit, claims it violates the neighborhood aesthetic codes. If the board votes against you, you'll have 24 hours to remove the animals or face fines and seizure of the property."
I thanked her and watched her drive away. My blood ran cold. Serena had a friend on the zoning board, Shelley, a woman who had the same plastic surgeon and the same lack of morals. If they revoked the permit, the trust would be in a breach of contract, and the house could revert to the next of kin, Gavin, and by extension, Serena. "Arthur!" I yelled, storming back into the house. "Get your suit ready. We're going to a town meeting." But before we could prep, the back door creaked open. I grabbed a frying pan from the drying rack, ready to swing. "Mom, don't hit me, it's just me." It was Gavin. He looked like he had been dragged through a hedge backward. His designer shirt was wrinkled, he had dark circles under his eyes, and he wasn't wearing his wedding ring. "You have 5 seconds to explain why you're breaking into my house before I let the donkeys trample you," I said, lowering the pan slightly. "I'm not breaking in. I left her," Gavin whispered, collapsing onto a kitchen chair. He put his head in his hands. "We stayed at a motel last night. She was screaming at lawyers on the phone all night. I heard her, Mom. I heard her talking to Shelley. She's bribing the zoning board member with promise of a kickback from the house sale. She sold me out, Mom. She forged my signature on those loans. I'm ruined. I'm going to jail." I looked at my son. For years, I had despised his weakness, his inability to stand up to that woman. But now, seeing him broken, I didn't feel pity. I felt clarity. "You might go to jail, Gavin. You signed papers without reading them. Ignorance isn't a defense. But if you want to salvage a shred of your dignity, you're going to help me destroy her tonight." Gavin looked up, tears in his eyes. "How? She has the board in her pocket. She's going to win." "She thinks she's playing chess," I said, walking over to the counter and picking up the thick file of financial crimes Arthur and I had compiled. "She doesn't realize she's playing against the woman who taught her how to bluff. She's going to stand up in that meeting and talk about community standards and property values. And then I'm going to stand up." I tossed the file onto the table with a heavy thud. I'm not just going to defend the sanctuary. I'm going to air out the dirty laundry. I'm going to expose the bribery, the fraud, and the fake career. I'm going to humiliate her in front of the entire town, the press, and the people she's trying so hard to impress. "She'll kill you," Gavin said, terrified. "She can try," I replied, checking my lipstick in the reflection of the toaster. "But I have a secret weapon. Tonight, the town is not just going to see a sweet old lady defending her donkeys. They're going to see a mother protecting her legacy. And let me tell you, hell hath no fury like a grandmother who's been treated like a maid." I turned to Arthur. "Is the projector ready? I want her bank statements on the big screen." Arthur grinned, a wicked glint in his eye. "Oh, it's going to be in 4K resolution, Beatrice. Crystal clear." "Good," I said, grabbing my purse. "Let's go to the town hall. It's time to take out the trash." The town hall was packed tighter than a can of sardines, and the air conditioner was fighting a losing battle against the body heat of 300 nosy neighbors. Everyone loves a good scandal, and thanks to the rumors swirling around town, half the population had shown up to watch the showdown between the crazy donkey lady and the grieving daughter-in-law. I sat in the front row, flanked by Arthur and a very pale, sweating Gavin. Across the aisle, Serena sat with Shelley, the zoning board president. Serena looked immaculate in a white suit, projecting the image of a concerned citizen. She smirked at me, a tiny pitying tilt of her head that said, "You're toast, Grandma." Shelley banged the gavel. "Order! We are here to discuss the emergency petition to revoke the permit for the Happy Hooves Sanctuary due to violations of noise ordinances and sanitation codes." Serena stood up first. She didn't walk to the podium. She glided. She adjusted the microphone, gave a heavy, tragic sigh, and looked out at the crowd with teary eyes. "I love my mother-in-law," she began, her voice quivering with fake emotion, "but her mental state has deteriorated. She has turned a historic property into a barnyard. The smell is unbearable, the noise is constant, and frankly, it's driving down the property values of every decent family in this room. We just want what's best for Beatrice. She needs professional care, not a farm." The crowd murmured. Heads nodded. She was good, I'll give her that. She was playing the victim card like a pro. Shelley nodded along, looking grave. "Thank you, Mrs. Miller. The board takes these complaints very seriously. If the property values are at risk—" "Objection," Arthur said, standing up. "We have a presentation." "We're not in court, counselor," Shelley snapped. "No," I said, standing up slowly. I grabbed my cane, I brought it for a dramatic effect, and walked to the microphone. "But we are in a public forum, and if we're talking about things that ruin property values, I think we should talk about fraud." "Excuse me?" Serena laughed nervously. "Beatrice, sit down, you're confusing everyone." "Arthur, hit the lights," I commanded. The room went dark. A massive projection screen behind the board members flickered to life. It wasn't a picture of donkeys, it was a screenshot of a text message thread. The crowd gasped. The text bubbles were massive. Sender, Serena. Receiver, Shelley. Zoning. Message, "Just kill the permit, Shelley. Once I get the deed back and sell the place, 10% of the sale price is yours. Cash, just like we discussed." Shelley's face turned the color of old milk. She slammed her gavel. "Turn that off. This is doctored. This is slander." "Is it?" I asked, my voice booming through the speakers. "Because I have the forensic download from the phone your friend Serena used, but that's just the appetizer." Arthur clicked the remote. The screen changed. Now it showed a bank statement. "This is the investment fund Serena sold to half the people in this room," I said, pointing to the screen. "You all gave her money for her boutique startup, right? Well, here's where the money went." The list scrolled. Gucci, the Ritz-Carlton, Porsche lease payments, Sephora. "My money!" someone shouted from the back. "That was my retirement fund." Serena was on her feet now, screaming, "Stop it! It's a lie! She's hacking my accounts! Arrest her!" "Sit down, Serena," Gavin shouted. He stood up, trembling, but for the first time in his life, he looked like a man. "It's all true. She forged my signature on the loans. She stole from her friends. She bribed the board, and she tried to put my mother in a home just to steal her house." The room erupted. It was chaos. People were shouting, pointing fingers, and demanding answers. Shelley was trying to sneak out the side door, but a group of angry homeowners blocked her path. Serena looked around, her eyes wild. Her mask had completely slipped. She wasn't the victim anymore. She was the villain, and the spotlight was blinding. She lunged toward me, her face twisted in rage. "You old witch! You ruined everything!" She didn't get far. Two uniformed officers who had been waiting in the back of the room stepped forward. Arthur had been busy today. "Serena Miller," one of the officers said, grabbing her wrist, "we have a warrant for your arrest regarding multiple counts of wire fraud, forgery, and embezzlement." "Get your hands off me," Serena shrieked as they cuffed her. "Do you know who I am? I'm an influencer. I have followers." "You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." As they hauled her past me, she locked eyes with me one last time. There was no smugness left, just fear. "Have fun in the big house, sweetie," I called out. "I hear orange is the new black." The meeting was adjourned immediately. The vote to revoke my permit, unanimously denied. Shelley resigned on the spot before the police could talk to her too. 6 months later, the Happy Hoof Sanctuary is thriving. We have 12 donkeys now, and the neighbors love them. It turns out donkeys are great for property values if you market them as rustic charm. I was sitting on the back porch, watching the sun set over the pasture. Barnaby came trotting up and nuzzling my hand for a carrot. Down in the paddock, a man in muddy boots was shoveling manure. It was Gavin. He avoided jail time by testifying against Serena and agreeing to a very strict restitution plan. He works for me now. He lives in the small guest cottage, pays rent, and spends his weekends cleaning stalls. It's hard work, but he looks happier than he ever did in a suit. He's finally learning the value of an honest dollar. I took a sip of my iced tea and patted Barnaby's head. Serena was currently awaiting trial, unable to make bail because, surprise, surprise, she had zero assets. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but nobody ever said you can't teach an old woman how to protect her pack. I looked at my kingdom, my son, and my donkeys. My house was safe, my conscience was clear, and the only thing getting kicked around here anymore is a soccer ball for the animals. Hee-haw! Barnaby brayed softly. You said it, Barnaby. You said it.